Good morning, everybody. Claudia McMullen here from Hugo Coffee Roasters. And today we're here with Krystal Tronball of Steampunk Farms. You might remember Steampunk Farms because Fluffy Cow did a fundraiser for Steampunk Farms a few months ago. And then we saw that Krystal had experienced what we didn't know what it is, but we knew something upsetting and sad and tragic happened. So we reached out to Krystal and said, what's going on? Can we help? And here we are today now because we're having a fundraiser for Hugo Coffee for Steampunk Farms for this baby Knight right behind Krystal right now. There he is, that handsome baby. And we want to know from Krystal, tell us all about Knight and what's happened with the story behind him and what happened and why we're here today.
Okay. That really hard, tragic kind of started this ball rolling without even knowing that's what was happening at the time is I lost my my heart and soul dog, I called him. He was only part of our family for 4 years, but he was just instantly my shadow. He was my best friend. It was just one of those connections that really, really hit fast and hard. And he was a dog from the Downey shelter that I adopted prior to the Steampunk Farms being really an entity. We were just getting into rescue. We had not yet incorporated or anything. And Wally was from the Downey shelter. He was taken in after being hit by a car, and he had an amputation surgery there in the shelter, which is really unique that they were able to offer that kind of surgery to an intact older pit bull. We know that there are just far too many of those in shelters. And so it was really special that the manager went out of her way to give this old man a second chance. And it was our family. And then when he died, it was just very, very sudden. Excuse the roosters in the house. We are still a farm.
Yes.
So Wally went out to potty in the morning like he always did, our usual routine, and he didn't come back in. He fell into a coma and I carried him in alive, but he passed away in my arms just right here in the room. And it was completely unexpected. And he was older and he had been having seizures. And I mean, there were indications that his health was failing, but never did I expect that to be the last time I let him out of the door.
Sure.
And it was very, very hard. It was one of those that I really needed to take a couple days away from social media entirely and just be with myself and kind of come to terms with this. And then when I logged back into social media a couple days later, I saw a story of a dog who had just been hit by a car in Downey, just like Wally had been. He had an open fracture of one of his front limbs. It looked like he was going to need it amputated. But instead of going to the Downey shelter where Wally was, where they really took very good care of him, he went to the shelter next door. It's just a very the jurisdictions are just right there. It's a very fine line, and there's two shelters just nearly side by side. And one of them is county funded, and that's the Downey shelter. And the other one is a separate entity, and they have much different policies. And their policy for injured animals is that if they don't exit by the end of the day, by close of business, they do not hold an injured animal overnight. And so it was a guaranteed euthanasia for this dog. And yeah, I have a hard time even calling them a shelter. They're a very difficult entity to work with just because their policies are so strict and so final. But there were lots of pledges coming in for this dog because a lot of people actually saw him hit by the car in the street, and they were part of being there with him and trying to help him. And they were sharing, there he goes. They were sharing with their friends. And so there was a lot of support for him. But without a nonprofit to contact the shelter and pull him, he was scheduled for euthanasia. It was coming up by the minute very fast. And so I stepped in and I thought, I'm not ready for a dog. I don't want a dog, but there are these donors and they need a nonprofit to be the middleman. And then they had volunteers who would pick him up and take him to a hospital. And we just needed somebody who would collect the donations from the donors and give them to the pet hospital for his surgery. And I said, I can do that. In Wally's memory, I will do that. I'll be the middleman. I contacted the shelter, and so he was legally mine, but I really didn't have intentions of taking this dog into our home. I was going to be the middleman and bring in the donations and pay for his medical bills. What we ended up with were donations that, even though they were in the thousands, ended up being woefully insignificant or insufficient, because when he got to the hospital, it wasn't just the open fracture we had to address. He also had 2 collapsed lungs. And 2 collapsed lungs, of course, took priority. They weren't going to do any surgery on the arm until we had stabilized his, simple things like respiration.
Sure.
And so that increased his hospital stay. He ended up being in a hospital for over a week. His bills were just skyrocketing. We hadn't even addressed the open fracture yet. It was just making sure that the liver was working okay and his bladder hadn't ruptured and that his lungs were able to reinflate and start, maintaining their own, their pressure again. So his bills really skyrocketed. He ended up being a very, very expensive puppy. And then when it finally came time to come out of the hospital, his surgery was covered by Hope for Paws, which is a very, very large, well-funded dog and cat rescue up in Los Angeles. And I reached out to them, and they very generously covered the actual surgery. And their surgeon was so fantastic. They were able to repair instead of amputate. So Knight does have all 4 of his limbs, even though one of them has a plate and some bolts and all sorts of hardware in there because it was a very severe fracture. But he was able to keep his leg, which is fantastic because he's on the young side. He's
he
estimated
looks young.
5 years old. And he's 83 pounds. He's a pretty big boy. So that body on only 3 limbs would have really taken its toll, in hips and arthritis and everything. So we're really grateful that he was able to get that help from Hope for Paws and get the more expensive, more involved surgery that allows him to keep the limb. So that's great news. But the bills that he incurred before that were still paying off because donations really only ended up covering about 2/3 of it. So that's something that is just, a little bit at a time. We're chipping away at it. He's worth it, no doubt. I would do it again if I had to, but that is kind of an unexpected expense that I ended up taking on. And then when it came time for him to come out of the hospital, he still needed, if it were just amputation, he would have had a single incision site, and his foster would have needed to have some minor wound care experience, but it would have been, not a whole lot worse than tending to your kid's scraped knee. It would have been keeping it clean, keeping it covered, and let it heal. Instead, what he had was a hard splint that needed cast padding and very extensive sutures. We're talking probably a 12-inch incision on his arm, lots of suture care, just lots of wound care. And that's something we have a lot of experience with here because farmed animals don't have really the same vet resources that dogs and cats do. And so we've learned to do a lot of our own wound care on the animals. And so we've got all of the materials here. We've got the disinfectants. We work really closely with vets who actually get me their supplies. So we've got everything we could need. And I thought, while he needs this wound care, he may as well come to us because I know we know how to do it. If I send him to any foster, I'm sure they would love him. He's very lovable, but I didn't know they would really have the confidence or the materials or the experience with doing the sutures and keeping that clean and everything. So that's how he ended up in our home here. He was really never intended to be our dog. I was going to be a middleman for him. Since he's not using his chair, I suppose I can sit up.
And we've changed now that you're gonna keep Knight?
I'm certainly leaning that way. He's grown to be a very, very perfect fit for our family. He's
great.
Very gentle. We have a Rottweiler who will be 15 next week. Very geriatric for a Rottweiler. And there was concern that a younger, more energetic dog would harass her or just make her uncomfortable. We didn't want her to feel as though she was being replaced, or, you know, her emotional state is as important as her physical at this stage of her life. And he's just been excellent with her. He's very accommodating. She doesn't seem to mind him. So he is really a very perfect fit for our family. He will be staying with us at least until all of his after medical care is complete. If
And
there's
how long about? How long?
we're looking at least until the end of the year, the end of the calendar year. He's still got.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say what our next bill is, our next hurdle, as far since we're talking about a fundraiser, and I know we don't have all the time in the world. He does need follow-up X-rays. Those are coming up in mid-September.
Okay.
And we're going to have the X-rays done out here because we have our vet that comes out to the farm, and he has portable X-ray equipment. So he will be able to take those X-rays for us. We're then going to send them to the surgeon who actually did Knight's repair, because he wants to see them and make sure that the plate is staying where it needs to be. Nothing has shifted. Make sure that the bone is growing as necessary. And so that's Knight's next financial hurdle, is covering that next set of X-rays and the consultation with his surgeon. All right.
So what are we here for today? We're here to talk about the fact that Hugo Coffee is doing a fundraiser to help you and to help Steampunk Farms with the medical bills for Knight.
Exactly.
So how it works, for anybody who might be new watching this, is Hugo Coffee will donate $2.50 for every single item sold on its website during the course of a week. And that week started on Monday morning and it ends this Sunday at midnight. So we have 3 more days to raise money to help Krystal and Steampunk Farms help Knight. So this is the call to action part of the live stream, Krystal, where we make sure that all of our fans, Steampunk fans, your fans, and you know who else we should be tagging? We should be tagging that amazing rescue where you got.
Yes.
So we should get their fans to also help with our effort to raise money to help Knight.
Absolutely. That's a fantastic idea. I'll hop on social media and do that today.
That would be great because, you know, as I've told you before, my favorite day of the week is Monday, because that's the day I Venmo or write checks to fantastic rescues and sanctuaries like Steampunk Farms. And of course, you know I love animals, and you know I'm obsessed with dogs. So this is perfect for me.
He's not obsessed with Knight. I mean, when his eyes really pop in a photo and he's got those bright blue eyes, he's a gorgeous boy.
He is gorgeous. I've been looking at his pictures all week, and I'm like, and I've been reposting and like talking about Knight. So let's get the word out. And by the way, people don't have to buy coffee if they buy a T-shirt, if they buy a mug. I don't care what you buy.
Okay.
It does not have to be coffee, because not everybody drinks coffee. I totally understand, but everybody loves
coffee.
Right? Who doesn't love dogs, for God's sake?
Seriously.
So here we are. But it's a mug. Like, I have these really beautiful mugs. Look at that.
Oh, that is fantastic. Oh, I love that.
Right? Drink coffee, save dogs. And then that's a paw print right at the top.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And then at the bottom, it says coffee with a pause. These are fantastic mugs. So anyway, a mug, a T-shirt, a hat. It doesn't matter what you buy. I'll donate $2.50 for every single item sold. Not every order, every item. So let's sell. We got 3 more days, and let's make this a good one so that I can write you a check on Monday or Venmo you, and let's help that beautiful, beautiful dog Knight.
I love it. Thank you so much. I'm going to pick up a mug for myself. That is gorgeous.
There you go.
That is
there
really
you go.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, Krystal. Thank you so much for everything you do for the animals, and right now, particularly for Knight. Thank you so much, and I'm so sorry for your loss. But I think Knight.
I'm coming to tell you that yesterday would have been Wally's gotchaversary, and that was a hard day. I did wake up in tears. It was hard. It was very hard. But the day before and the day after, I feel like I'm slowly There he is.
There he is.
You would know he's got a broken leg, huh?
You would not.
Right.
You would not.
I mean, he's got a pretty good bandage on it still. And when he does walk, he's got a limp, kind of a hobble.
Yeah. Sure.
But energy-wise, he doesn't know. He's forgotten those days. That was a month ago for him, and he would rather forget, apparently.
Well, I'm so excited that we were able to help, and I want to help as much as we can. So let's buy coffee and mugs and T-shirts this weekend, and then we will see you again in a few months when we do another fundraiser for Steampunk Farms down the road.
I would love that. Thank you so much.
All right, Krystal, you take care, and you have a great weekend.
You too.
Okay, bye, honey.
Bye.